what I love is that you got to go with new boobs to Italy with your husband for your
Oh yeah, we
honeymoon.
forgot to
Yes,
mention that.
I do.
Girl.
I will say, and I'm the rare case. I love my boobs. Okay. I love them. I love
Good
them
for
more
you.
than my other ones. And I know not a lot of women can say that. So I know that I'm like the unicorn,
You are
but
lucky.
I love them so much.
That's wonderful.
Welcome to Cancer Bites. Bold voices, big insights, and unstoppable energy. Because cancer doesn't get the last word.
I always think about the idea of what's next in the journey when I think about you, Kayla, because I always remember you saying in our first conversation, cancer is just a roadblock. And, with that, I'll introduce you again to our audience. Hello
Yeah.
to everyone out there coming on and, getting or catch up with Kayla. And Kayla was one of our very first guests way back in
Yeah.
the day in
Yeah.
September when we
I know it
started.
was right. Was it before? I think it was right after my surgery, which
It
is
was, it
crazy.
was, you
Yeah.
were on a journey. So, long story short, you are a publicist, you're an amazing breast cancer survivor, and you are, part of a group of people who you got breast cancer. You were diagnosed at a very young age. I mean, now
Mhm.
you look like, a baby. So I can imagine how young you were when you were diagnosed. And that is, just a quick recap to remind the audience of Kayla's story, please feel free to check out on YouTube. You can check the recording of or session with Kayla. And I think there are some unique challenges that come along with being diagnosed at that young age. And we're not trying to go over anything too painful, but if there's anything you want to share, give some insights that might help everyone out there about some of the things that you went through. I know everyone's different, but it might help prepare some people who are
Mhm.
listening and watching.
Totally. So the thing that I wasn't totally prepared for mentally was even when you're dubbed cancer free, you still have so many more things to do. My oncologist was like, you rang the bell, like, hooray. Now you need 11 sessions of immunotherapy. And, it's like, he's like, and then I'm on tamoxifen, which is a pill that I now have to take every day for the next 5 years. So it's like there's
Oh,
really no end to this.
yeah.
Like I will always need some sort of treatment. And immunotherapy, of course, is different from chemotherapy, where the side effects are quite minimal, but still the act of going to the infusion center
Yeah.
still every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot mentally, and I the all of last year was spent moving my travels around and organizing my life around treatment, and I was so excited to finally not have to do that anymore. And I still have to do that. I still have to go. I still have all the appointments. I still have, so it is it feels obviously celebratory, but also
Yeah.
um almost like I have like weighted boots on and I'm like just
Mm.
trying to get out of the mud, and I just like, it's still we're still climbing that hill. So
Ooh, yeah, that's a vivid metaphor, weighted boots, because we would all love to be able to celebrate and say that very interesting loaded term closure that we would
yeah,
all like to say we have,
yeah,
which clearly doesn't exist on that journey.
right.
And I think part of the journey is to become okay with that,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it is part of accepting that journey, and it's part of
right,
saying, okay, you're moving forward anyway. So I think that's amazing. And I
right.
think that's something that will be really helpful for people to know, rather than think, okay, it's going to be over, you can close that chapter. That, writing that story is part of you, and you don't have to be defined by the bad times. You can keep moving forward. So I
Yeah.
love that. And I love, we were very excited to hear your updates, because I remember you were supposed to be going honeymoon. We had agreed you were coming to visit me in Barbados. I haven't
Yes,
seen you
I'm
here yet, and I
still
want to know
totally
what's
doing
going
that.
on.
Yes.
What's going on with your honeymoon?
Yeah, so we actually, my husband and I just got back from Italy. We went, I know, we
Wonderful.
went over the holiday and New Year's. And so yeah, so
Lovely.
that was really nice. We are still planning to do Bali, which was our original plan in May,
Bali's beautiful.
but
I've
this
been
was
to both
kind of
places.
our like let's go to Europe. Like I haven't
Yes.
been to Europe in 10 years. My husband's always wanted to go to Italy. So we kind of were
Lovely.
like, let's go then. And so it was very lovely. I mean, it was a lot too physically just because my energy hasn't really bounced
Yes.
back to what it
Yeah.
was. So
Yeah.
to have to run around every day was like a blessing, but also I was like, I'm really exhausted.
Good. Oh, I can
So
imagine, but beautiful
yeah.
memories being made because I
Yeah,
was in Italy as
it was
well.
worth the exhaustion for sure.
Oh,
So,
totally, totally.
yeah.
I was in
Yeah.
Italy over the summer last year, and I've also been to Bali. So, which part of Italy did you guys visit?
We did Venice, Florence, which I had been to Florence before, and then we did
Okay.
London for a day
Oh,
before coming home. And I
sweet.
used to live in London for a semester. I lived in London, so it was really nice to kind of go back um,
Wonderful.
and show my husband this other part of my life that before he met me, I had this whole other, you know, piece of myself
Yeah.
that he never got to meet. So it was kind of cool to show him around my city and, it was really sweet.
Oh, wonderful to keep those memories going.
Yeah.
And I know that another aspect of what you experienced when we had caught up in our first conversation, you mentioned your grandmother passing away as well.
Yeah.
And I'm that I think about that in I think what is a good way, as I said that time, I feel that you're representing her spirit so well here,
Thank
and
you.
I want to know, how is that going? And we're really, we really are sorry.
It's yeah, it's so interesting. Grief is really interesting. They say it's not linear, which is so true because like even I was on the boat in Venice and like I don't even my husband like didn't even notice, but I was like crying a little because I was thinking of her and I was like,
Mm.
oh, like she would be so happy that I'm here and doing this and I was wearing her jacket actually. I
Oh,
kept a few of her jackets and I was just like, oh, like I can't call her and like tell her and show her picture so that's hard, but at the same time like she would be so happy and maybe on some level she did know that I was in Venice and like just
exactly.
to continue living life to the fullest and being excited to experience life I think is the only way to sort of honor her.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful when you say to continue living life to the fullest. And that brings me into, my next kind of question and what we're going to chat about before we close up. Just the idea of your general life perspective. It sounds as if, understandably, there's been quite a shift. And what kind of core shifts do you feel in yourself as you're navigating this journey? We say post-cancer, but there's still things that are going on that tether you till your diagnosis. What core changes do you think you're experiencing?
That's a great question.
Mm.
um I mean really physically and dietary and all of that stuff has kind of remained the same, but I've tried to limit my stress. I think that's been a
Very good. Yeah.
huge factor in how I could because they say that stress can cause, issues. And
Yes.
so I really, really made it a point to, either self-soothe or just, not try and mentally, talk through things and get my stress under control. And I think that's like I'm choosing not to worry about the little things. I'm
Yeah.
choosing not to get up in arms about things out of my control and to just knowing that I think has helped a lot and keeping my stress down. Easier said than done. I mean, we still
Yeah,
have
I
our,
know.
I also bought an aura ring, so this ring tells
Oh,
me when my stress levels are heightened.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
but beyond that, I really just haven't really changed much. I mean, I walk every day. I eat healthy, but I was doing that stuff before too. So,
Or yeah,
it's hard to say like, oh, I should change the way I was because this happened, but we know that things happen and you can't really control the external factors don't always the
exactly.
make, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, it
you know,
completely does. And
yeah.
what I think is really incredible about what you're saying is that that is such a universal piece of advice that is so underutilized, the idea of reducing stress. And also what it is to reduce stress. It's not, as you say, to be able to control everything because things are out of control. Very
Yeah.
little is actually in our control. What we can control, obviously, is how we respond, how we deal with it. When you talked about self-soothing, I think about there's some specific things in my life too that I've learned. Yeah, I can learn how to try to keep myself grounded in the present moment and deal with
Hmm.
things internally. I mean, and
Hmm.
nobody's perfect. There are some times when I'll just like have a
Of course.
full meltdown and I'll need my cat
Yeah.
as a therapy animal and then like, sit there huddled under a
Yeah.
blanket with a cup of
Yeah.
tea and escape for a bit.
Yeah.
But, the balance is that maybe
Yeah.
that is my coping mechanism. So I think
Yeah.
that is a really great message for us to keep using and for us to keep amplifying. We can so underestimate the effects of stress
Yes.
and
Yes.
recognize
Yeah.
that stresses are different for everyone. But I
Yes.
really applaud how you have centered that approach and we can all learn from that. And I definitely will learn from that. I know that Siobhan has been very quiet, but I don't know, Siobhan, would you like to just give a final reflection before we look to sign off? Hi.
Hi, everybody. Kayla, I am coming up behind you. I think that when the doctor said, you have breast cancer, it's stage 4, you have 6 years to live, that in itself was shocking enough. And then when they said, you're going to have to stay on the medication for the rest of your life, I was like, oh no. Like, to me, taking prescription drugs is like, so I'm taking all kinds of natural supplements and getting my protein and eating as well as I can, and then I get this hormonal breast cancer that's going to take me out if I don't do anything about it. But I'm listening to you, and you're now starting to go into the rehabilitation side of breast cancer,
Yeah.
which we just spoke to a group out of Atlanta
Yes.
this afternoon, and we'll be posting that as well in the next week. But they are helping women to go through the stage you're going through right now, Kayla, and they are phenomenal. So,
They're amazing. They're an
I
amazing
think
nonprofit.
hopefully that, I said to them, I hope that they can do this across the countries. They're
Yeah.
only in Atlanta right now, and there's nothing like them in
Yeah.
the United States, they said. So,
Um,
um, what I love is that you got to go with new boobs to Italy with your husband for
Oh
your
yeah, we
honeymoon.
forgot to
yes.
mention that.
I do.
Girl.
And I'm the rare case. I love my boobs. Okay. I love them. I love
Good
them
for
more
you.
than my other ones. And I know not a lot of women can say that. So I know that I'm like the unicorn,
You are
but
lucky.
I love them so much.
That's wonderful. Good. Yay.
So I actually have a question because I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, well, no, they haven't taken my boob. I don't know if they will, right? And I said, um, and then she said, well, you don't want a fake one, like a silicone breast or anything like that. And I was like, I don't know what they put in them now. So can you just share that a little bit?
It is silicone.
It
Yeah.
is silicone.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. They do feel fake. Like they do, but they look good.
There you go. They're part of you, and all of you is beautiful. So
Yeah.
that's what I say.
So,
Enjoy.
but they look good, but they don't feel it. And my mom is actually getting a double mastectomy just preventatively,
Okay.
just because of everything with me and my grandma. And
Yeah.
she is getting it done in March. And I was like, feel mine. This is what they'll feel like. And she's like, Kayla, it doesn't feel real. I'm like, because it's not real.
Because it's not.
She was like so like shocked with the way it felt. I was like, yeah, because it's silicone.
Well, we're gonna say thanks so much for Kayla for her update. And
Yeah.
I have a feeling that we're still gonna keep talking. That
Yes,
this
I
update
would
is
love
just
to
one of
keep
many.
talking.
Please
Absolutely.
keep in touch with us. And I
Yeah.
know someday that talking will happen in Barbados
Oh, yes.
on a
100%
retreat,
will.
but
Yeah.
we'll talk about that
Yeah.
when we stop recording.
Amazing.
Thanks so much for being with us.
This has been Cancer Bites. Real people, real life with cancer. Take what you need, leave what you don't, and come back when you're ready. Cancer doesn't define us, but our voices do. On behalf of Stacy and Siobhan, see you next bite.